My next guest is the founder and artistic director of the Australian Shakespeare Company, a pioneer of outdoor live theatre here in Australia. This month, he's also directing the Merry Wives of Windsor at Melbourne's Royal Botanic Gardens. Welcome to Showtime, Glenn Elston.
Thank you, Andrew. Very nice to be here.
Oh, so nice to have you. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Tell me a little bit about how the Australian Shakespeare Company started and so how it's evolved over the years.
Look, it was back in... It depends how far you want to go back.
Go back to the 1600s.
Yeah. No. Well, like all good Shakespeare companies, we do more than Shakespeare. It started with The Wind in the Willows, which started with Adelaide University, and I funnily enough, went to visit a girl, and with another girl, and I got there anyway, and they were reading. She was reading to her friend, and I just thought it was just the most wonderful concept. Anyway, you just sit and read to your friend, and they were reading. She was reading her The Wind in the Willows, and
so that was the acorn.
Yeah, we were going out somewhere, and they said, "Oh, just sit down for a minute. We'll just finish this chapter." And I just sat there listening to it, thinking, "Oh, it's just such beautiful language." And then a few years later, I was working in London and bought a copy of The Wind in the Willows, and I was working at the Institute of Contemporary Art as the production manager, and living in a very cold flat in Lewisham. And I'd get snuggled up in bed and read The Wind in the Willows and dream about being back in wonderful Melbourne and the Botanic Garden. I just started to think, wouldn't it be so wonderful to do this in the Botanic Gardens? And came home a year later and did it. And that was the beginning.
I've got such fond memories personally. My kids are now 9 and 13, but when they were little, we... every summer we'd go see Wind in the Willow at the Botanic Gardens. It's a bit of a Melbourne institution, I reckon.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just such a credit to Melbourne that they've taken it on, and it is a tradition now, and we're now people love to come up to the box office and make the point of letting us know that they're a third generation, and it's just it's delightful. It really is.
It feels to me like part of it for you is bringing different types of theatre to the people rather than keeping it in this traditional indoor environment. What's it? And even I guess with the Shakespeare work, making it with respectful of the work, but modernising it, making it more accessible to a contemporary audience. Is that part of the motivation for you?
Yeah, it is. Something happens when people go and sit in a theatre that doesn't happen when you go and sit on the grass. I'm not quite sure, what it is. I don't want to try and be too definitive, but the wonderful thing about being outdoors and performing is, for a performer and the audience, is that all of a sudden it's all kind of equalized. Everyone's feeling the same breeze, everyone's sharing getting the same sun when the cloud goes past and the sun pops out. Everyone's on the same in the same place environmentally, and that I think relaxes people or something. It just makes it more congenial. The whole aspect of performing outdoors is it's just less stressful than being in a theatre for everyone.
You say that, but having grown up in Melbourne, I know that our weather can be a little bit temperamental, to put it politely.
I should have added on a good day.
Absolutely on a good, and of course it can be absolutely bucketing down. It can be windy as anything, or it could be so stinking hot. How do you factor in those contingencies as a producer of outdoor theatre in Melbourne?
Various things, depends on the location. I mean, in down at Rip and Lee, where we've been doing the fairy show, and we're doing it again this summer, is we've got these wonderful big marquees that are just big enough to be able to manage to get up and down easily with 4 people, and we put them out so that the audience, and we now do ones over the cast as well, so that there's bit of portable shade there, and the rest of it is, potluck, really. It's either a good day or a bad day. We plan to lose 4 or 5 shows per season, but the little bit of rain doesn't matter so much. I mean, we can get through that. The worst thing is the heat. When we get a heat wave, that's when people don't want to go out. They want to just stay at home. And we try to pick locations that have got as much a natural shade from the trees there as we can. But yeah, it's all part of being a theatre farmer.
Theatre farmer, that's awesome. Love that term. And of course, you're working on the Merry Wives of Windsor now.
Yes,
which is coming to the Royal Botanic Gardens later this month.
Yeah, we're rehearsing at the Athenaeum Theatre today, and they're almost in the next room.
Oh wow! So it's one of Shakespeare's probably more playful works. How have you been able to capture that fun and energy in this production?
We hit a real turning point towards the end of last week. It's an interesting play because we're used to a lot of verse, but it's mostly prose. So it's like 95%. There's one character that all of a sudden is making this speech in verse, and you go, oh, hallelujah, hallelujah. So we're really starting to get a grip on the characters. It's a wonderful, it's sort of crazy story, and we're just basically taking it on as we're going to be as crazy as the writing, and hopefully as funny. So yeah, it's very domestic. Which is again different for Shakespeare. It doesn't have the kind of colossal background or the magnificent references that comes out of plays like The Dream or Hamlet, or it's really quite different. It's got a sort of domestic language and it's in a domestic setting. But the interesting thing that we're finding is that it has an underlying theme about money, that everything's about money, which hasn't changed, and it also portrays women, especially the 2 actual wives that are the focus in it, as very much smarter and much cleverer than the men around them, and it's a very positive, has a very positive bent on how it presents women, and it has the other theme of relationships and jealousy. And one of the husbands is incredibly jealous, and it proves to make him a fool. And the other theme is true love. There's another character in it, Anne, the young girl in it, who mother wants her to marry a French doctor. Her father wants her to marry another character who's very unsuited to her, or as the mother says, he's an idiot. And along comes the third suitor, who is openly admits to her a little while after their meetings that he came looking for her because her father's well off, but that's all to one side now, and he's desperately and genuinely fallen in love, and so has she.
Glenn, that theme that you described before about those sort of clever, witty, strong women in the show, I imagine in the 1600s it was a far more novel concept than it is today. How do you think that translates to a 2024 audience?
Very well. I think it translates very well. And I don't think it appears in a lot of his plays, this strength, especially in a domestic situation. And given that you still, I think at the time of this one, Elizabeth I was the Queen, so you had a female queen. You had somebody running the country who's not a man. I think in general, business and other areas, it was not definitely had not had much development at all. But I think domestically, it certainly did. And Shakespeare in other plays makes a lot of other references to who's actually who's ruling the roost, or kind of has the power in the house. And it's he often leans towards the woman. Yeah, and I think for a modern audience, I think they'd cheer at it.
Yeah, I imagine so too, as they should. With the Merry Wives of Windsor, how have you changed it, adapted it to work in an outdoor environment?
I haven't actually changed it much. We've done a bit of editing because it runs on a bit. But in terms of changing it, I wouldn't call it changing it. But we're actually, for the very first time, I decided to pick a style that's based on a decade. So we're doing it in a 70s style. So it's got all the colours and the patterns of the 70s. And it also allows us, being outdoors and being on the stage run, also allows us to be able to use different devices like vehicles and bikes and stuff like that for people getting on and off. And yeah, we're trying to support it as much as we can through using that flamboyance of the 70s. Is really what we're doing. The old keys in the jar, keys in the bowl.
Triggers are a memory of an old sitcom too. I remember when, as I was saying before, taking my kids to see Wind in the Willow, and from memory, it was a long time ago. We moved around. So we moved as part of the transition from one scene to the next. Is that happening here as well?
In Merry Wives?
Yeah.
No. Unfortunately not. We don't. We're not allowed to.
Okay.
Yeah. Because we're on the Southern Cross lawn, and the way we have to manage it is we have to have a stage, but we've got a beautiful tree backdrop. It's really quite gorgeous, and it all still works very well. But yeah, I early on in the Shakespeare's, we were able to move the entire audience around. We still do it with Willows. Willows still starts at the riverbank, and then it goes to Toad Hall, and then at Toad Hall, about halfway through the second half, a lot of the audience go off searching for young Portly lost in the wild wood, and the rest of the audience stay in the Weasel, and the Head Chief Rabbit do a little show for them, which results in the Weasel has snuck into Toad Hall and taken it over. So yeah, but yeah, moving around's great fun. But the audience do actually like to stay still. With the kids, it's great.
I was about to say exactly that. I imagine with the children audience, like Willow, having that interactivity and being able to get rid of some of that restlessness throughout a show would really help serve the show and serve the audience.
Yeah, and it's a great to be able to do that. We do it in each of the family shows. Each of the family shows has an activity that happens during the show. Like the fairies go off searching for Tinkerbells. In fairies, the kids get up and they go to Bubble Land, and there's all these bubble machines, and then they go off searching for Tinkerbell's wings. And we just did Jack and the Beanstalk, and they went off hunting for the golden eggs and stuff like that. So yeah, it's great fun to get them up. They love it. So do we.
Yeah.
We're the kids.
It is fun.
We're the big kids.
Jumping back to Merry Wives of Windsor, what have been the biggest challenges bringing this to this outdoor setting in Melbourne in 2024?
I think the biggest challenges have been, at the moment, the biggest challenge is just getting to understand it and the movement in it. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge still is because we're in rehearsals. It's working out how we fit in the play, and how once we get inside it, how we are utilising it to its best comic effect, and being able to reach out to the audience so that they're totally on board and a part of it. And I think we're getting there. I really do. I think we're coming. There's some interesting stuff. because there was a lot of things happened in the 70s that are really, for the whole, just in design, the design of things just changed dramatically. The look changed dramatically of everything from curtains to clothing to all sorts of domestic things and cars and all of that. Yeah. Star Wars came in 77. There's a lot of things that went on, and we're kind of trying to weave in as much as we can so that it solidly sits in that period, and that's starting to really come to fruition as well.
What do you think William Shakespeare would say if he was alive today, seeing the Merry Wives of Windsor being played in an outdoor setting in Australia set in 1970s?
I think he'd say, "Thank God, get on with it." Yeah, I think he'd be very happy. I do. I think
It sounds like such a fun concept.
Yeah, I mean, the setting the set that we're using is, we call it the Garden Globe, because it was based on the staging at the Globe, and it's got the 3 entrances and 2 levels, and I think he'd be really happy, really happy. I mean, I did Godspell years ago, and we played it up at did it here and other places, but we're at the Opera House, and Stephen Schwartz, the writer, came along because he was in town for a seminar about his work, and he came after the show to meet the cast and everything, and I had a quick chat to him about how we were doing it, and he was absolutely delighted. He said, "That's a great." He said, "I just love the fact that it's been done in so many different ways, and I think that Shakespeare would be the same. He'd just go, 'You're finding a way to use my words for your people. What could be better?'"
The Merry Wives of Windsor by the Australian Shakespeare Company is playing from the 21st of December to the 25th of January at the Southern Cross Lawn at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Melbourne. For more information and tickets, visit shakespeareaustralia.com.au. Glenn, thank you so much for joining me, and all the best with your last couple of weeks of rehearsals, and of course, hopefully a bumper season.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.